Okay, I'm going to start this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the words of the Buddha. We start with meditation, so I'm going to guide you in a meditation session first, and then I'll explain to you what the Pali Canon and English study group is, and we'll actually study the teachings of the Buddha. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online as well. If you'd like to join for meditation, I start with some chanting, and these chants are on a laminated sheet over there on the table. If you'd like to see the chants, you're welcome to get those. These chants aren't anything mystical or magical. It's not prayer or worship or anything like that. It just helps to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you read the English translations on these chants, you'll notice there's a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I suspect that his students created these during his life or after his death, because the Buddha doesn't go around and teach people to chant these kinds of things to him. During his lifetime, he used chanting as a way to help his students to remember the teachings, because everything he taught was oral. So he would bring his students together every 2 weeks and they would be reciting his teachings word for word for word. And that's how chanting came about. So there isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not a prayer or worship or anything like that. So if you'd like to chant, you can chant along with me and it'll ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Then once I do the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance to guide you during the meditation, and then afterwards there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet, and you'll see that all of us will be meditating here, and those of you guys online will just be meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start the class. For those of you guys that maybe you're new to meditation, or maybe you've been meditating for a while, you'd like some guidance on your body positioning. If you're sitting on the floor, oftentimes you have your legs crossed and you would like to just have them lightly crossed. If they're real tight, it will impede the circulation and it'll cause pain in the body. And some people like to put their legs off the mat. Some people like to do that because it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and it helps the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. So if you'd like to do this, you could, but it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way, because that's not actually possible. So there's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people like to rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you, where your lower body and hands and arms are completely relaxed. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, because you'll have your sternum up and your shoulders back, and this will make it easier for you to breathe. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along in, and then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวาปมานุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังมหาคะวันหังอะภิวาเทมิ สวากขาโตมหาควตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโพโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly ease your way out of meditation, I'd like to once again welcome everyone here. Welcome to Wat Tung. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Nice to see you guys. For those of you guys that it's your first time here, I'd like to let you know there's a bathroom in the back of the room, the very last door on the right. You're welcome to use that at any time. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, you'll see signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathroom. And then we have water and snacks and juice and things like that that's provided by our students over here on the table. If you'd like to help yourself to that, you're more than welcome to. Today's class is called the Pali Canon and English Study Group. This is where it's going to help you to study with the original words of the Buddha and understand the path to enlightenment. What the Buddha does is he teaches all throughout his life from the age of 35 to 80 of how to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger and sadness, the frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these feelings in others are completely eliminated from the mind. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the mind. And you accomplish that through training of the mind. You apply certain tools and techniques that the Buddha taught, and you uproot pollutions out of the mind that are now going to move the mind to this enlightened mental state, where your mind doesn't even experience a bad mood anymore. You'll notice that the mind's focused and concentrated. You have clarity of mind and deep memory. And your personal and professional relationships will really blossom. They'll be at ease because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile anymore in your relationships. And this all comes through learning the teachings of the Buddha, where you're examining them, you're investigating them. Then you reflect on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you practice his teachings by integrating them into your life. life. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not a bunch of beliefs that you believe a bunch of things and then you hope something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning now, you're reflecting now, and you're practicing now in this life. So you experience the results now in this life. You see the peace and the joy coming into the mind. So the way that we do this Pali Canon and English study group is I have chapters here from the book series that we have over there. Volume 1 is the first book, and I have a program called the Group Learning Program where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book to help students build a foundation in their path to enlightenment and understanding the foundational teachings. This is a 7-month program going through Volume 1, and we have other courses and retreats that help you with that as well. And then in this program, we use Volumes 2 through 13, and we go through those chapter by chapter each week, where this week we're in Volume 3, chapters 11 through 20. For those of you guys that were here last week, I did chapters 21 through 30, but I did them a little bit out of order. I didn't realize that it was actually supposed to be 11 through 20, so now I'm going to go back and do 11 through 20, and then the following week we're going to be in chapter 31 through 40. Okay, so we're kind of have a little hiccup there, right? So now we're in chapters 11 through 20, and what we do is I invite a student from here at the temple, or any of you guys that are joining online through Zoom, that you can volunteer to read the chapter, and you can see these chapters. They're fairly short. This one is like a page and a quarter. And if somebody volunteers to read this chapter, then afterwards I will share some teachings on that. And then I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to the chapter. If you would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, or you have questions at any point during the class, if you could use the microphones here in the white bowl, all you need to do is come get a microphone, press the gray button. The lights are going to come on, and you just wait a second or so and hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And for those of you guys that are joining online, if you would like to volunteer to read, all you need to do is in Zoom, electronically raise your hand, and then I'll see that, and then you'll open up your mic, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. We'll be able to hear you in the live stream. And then as anybody has any questions that are online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or those of you guys in Zoom, you can also raise your hand for questions, open up your mic, and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like Pat would like to volunteer to read this first chapter. So if you'd like to read this one, go ahead, Pat.
Chapter 11, 4 sources of depletion and accumulation of the wealth. The 4 sources of depletion of the wealth. Bhaya-gapaja, the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of depletion. 1, womanizing. 2, drunkenness, heedlessness. 3, gambling. 4, unwholesome friendship, unwholesome companionship, unwholesome comradeship. Bhaya-gapaja, just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, a man would close the inlets and open the outlets, and sufficient rain does not fall, one could predict the water in the reservoir to decrease rather than increase. Bhaya-gapaja, so the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of depletion. 1, womanizing. 2, drunkenness, heedlessness. 3, gambling. 4, unwholesome friendship, unwholesome companionship, unwholesome comradeship. The 4 sources of accumulation of wealth, Bhaya-gapaja, the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of accumulation. 1, one avoids womanizing. 2, one avoids drunkenness, heedlessness. 3, one avoids gambling. 4, one cultivates wholesome friendship, wholesome companionship, wholesome comradeship. Bhaya-gapaja, just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, and a man would open the inlets and close the outlets, and sufficient rain falls, one could predict the water in the reservoir to increase rather than decrease. Bhaya-gapaja, so the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of accumulation. 1, one avoids womanizing. 2, one avoids drunkenness, heedlessness. 3, one avoids gambling. 4, one cultivates wholesome friendship, wholesome companionship, wholesome comradeship. These are the four things that lead to the welfare and peacefulness of a householder in this very life.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the teachings of the Buddha are here to guide you in cultivating wisdom, because it's when you have wisdom that you'll make wise decisions that'll lead to wholesome results. We refer to this as wholesome karma, or some people use the word karma. There's this wholesome karma or wholesome results that are achieved whenever you make wise decisions. And when you make unwise decisions, it's going to lead to unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So the teachings of the Buddha, as I mentioned, aren't a bunch of beliefs. It's helping you awaken to the wisdom of this natural law. This natural law of karma is affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. And the more wisdom that you have of this natural law, the more you can make wise decisions and experience wholesome results in your life. So the teachings of the Buddha, he's helping you to be able to see the various decisions that you could make that would be either wise or unwise. And on this particular chapter, he's explaining how your money is leaving you and how to accumulate money. This is just one aspect of that. And it's not money that's going to lead to happiness in your life. That's not what the Buddha is teaching. But you need some amount of income and some amount of wealth in order to sustain your life. You're going to need food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care. These are the 5 essential things that you're going to need in order to sustain your life. Food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Without those 5 things, you wouldn't be able to survive. So if you were doing these 4 things that the Buddha is describing here, you wouldn't be able to accumulate wealth to be able to take care of yourself and your family and the people around you. So he's helping you to be able to see the cause and effect, this natural law of karma, of the things that lead to depletion of wealth and the things that lead to accumulation of wealth. And here he's referring to womanizing, and he's talking to men, so that's why he's using womanizing. But essentially what this is going out and having casual sex with lots and lots of people, chasing after somebody or multiple people that you're interested in interacting with in a sexual nature, and just going out there and blowing all your money to try to accumulate, more and more sexual partners is essentially what he's referring to here. And then there's drunkenness or heedlessness, using substances that cause heedlessness. If you're using those kinds of things, you're going to make unwise decisions because your mind isn't going to have the consciousness to make wise decisions. So whenever you're ingesting a substance, no matter what it is, whether it's alcohol or some other substance, if it's promoting heedlessness, or what we refer to as a lack of mindfulness, a lack of attentiveness, a lack of alertness or awareness, this is going to produce a mind that is polluted and unable to make wise decisions. So you're going to lose a certain amount of money through having substances that cause heedlessness. And then gambling. This would be to use money in order to play some game of chance in order to try to acquire more money. This is going to deplete your money as well. And then unwholesome friends, companions, and comrades. Essentially, if you associate with individuals who are in unwholesome things, you're going to tend to do those things too. And you're not going to have the ability to build up your professional life and have a great career. It's important to cultivate wholesome friends and companions and comrades, because this is going to help promote success in your life. But you need to be able to do this without judging other people. And one of the things that I suggest you do is just separate the decisions people make from the person themselves. You can love all people, but you can disagree with people's decisions. So if people were into killing or stealing or sexual misconduct or lying or substances that cause heedlessness, those would be unwise individuals to associate with, because those are what we refer to as the 5 precepts, which you can study in depth in all the foundational programs that I teach. And as you learn these through the words of the Buddha, you can understand that if you are doing these things, it's going to cause unwholesome results in your life. So if you associate with individuals who are doing these kinds of things, your choice to associate with them, it's going to cause you difficulties too. So what you would like to do is to be able to look at someone's decisions that they make and not look down on them for the unwise decisions that they make, but just realize with your own wisdom that it would be unwise to associate with individuals who are into unwholesome things. Because as you do that, it's going to deplete your wealth. Your friends call you up and say, hey, I need you to bail me out of jail. I'm in jail. Can you come bail me out of jail? Or, hey, I need to borrow your money. Can you let me borrow your money? I'll pay you back another time. And then next thing you know, you never see your money. There's things like this that are going to deplete your wealth. And the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that through your own investigation of his teachings, because you don't believe what he's sharing here. You learn it, which is what we're doing now. Then you start reflecting on it. If you've ever done any of these things, or you ever known anybody that's done these things, you can reflect on this and see how it leads to the depletion of your wealth. And you can see that what the Buddha is teaching is 100% the truth through your own direct experience and through the experience of the people around you that you might see who do these kinds of things. And then, of course, he's giving you just the opposite of this to help you understand how to accumulate wealth. Because if you shut these things down, like he's talking about here, like outlets and inlets of a large reservoir, if you shut these things down where you're avoiding going out and having casual sex with lots of people, and you just have one loyal, loving, consenting partner who you build a loving relationship with, if you avoid taking substances that cause heedlessness, if you avoid gambling and you cultivate wholesome friends and wholesome companions, you'll be able to see that your money will accumulate and you'll experience more and more wealth. Because if you have wholesome friends that are into wholesome things, they're going to be doing wholesome things, and they're going to have different opportunities in their life that can maybe help you professionally as well. If you're hanging around people who are into unwholesome things, you're not going to be able to experience improvement in your life where people trust you and they give you more and more responsibility at a job or at a company, or they hire you for a certain position. But when you have wholesome friends, these people will help you to be able to increase your wealth, because you can't just become rich and wealthy by yourself. You're going to need other people to be able to support you and help you along the way. You know, there's going to be many people that you're going to need to have support from. And again, wealth and money isn't going to lead to your happiness, but you need a certain amount of money in order to sustain your life and take care of the things that you need to take care of. So here the Buddha is helping you to be able to see the 4 things that are going to lead to the accumulation of more money for yourself, so that you can take care of all the things you need to take care of in life. So do you guys have questions on this one? Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or those of you guys here, you can ask questions with the microphones. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. Okay, so let's move to the next one. This is chapter 12. As you guys see here, what I would like to show you is you have the words of the Buddha here that we just read. Then you've got a reference. This is going back to the original source teachings of the Buddha in the Pali Canon. There's 45 large volumes of books, and this will link you back to that so you can see that this is indeed from the original teachings of the Buddha. And then you've got words from me underneath of this that are helping you to reflect on this and be able to integrate it into your life. The Buddha speaks very clear, very concise, and very precise, as you see here, but it helps to have a dedicated practitioner and teacher to guide you through the path to enlightenment, because you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment by yourself without the help of teachers or guides. So having someone that understands the teachings to walk you through, that's what I'm doing here, because some of the teachings of the Buddha, they're connected to other teachings, and it's helpful if somebody understands those and can show you those connections. So that's what I'm doing here in this particular part, is I'm explaining to you some things that aren't necessarily apparent that maybe are connected to other teachings, and I'm explaining to you how to integrate it into your life in a way that you'll get benefit out of the teaching. So this is chapter 12. Is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this, either here at the temple or on Zoom? For those of you guys that English is your second language, this is a great time to practice your English a little bit. Here we go. Also, if you feel shy, if you put your mind in the situation that it feels shy about, it'll help you to be able to eliminate your shyness. Yes, sir. Jack, right?
Yes.
Jack.
6 ways of wasting one's substance. Householder's son. And which are the 6 ways of wasting one's substance that the noble disciple does not follow? 1. Addiction to strong drink and sloth-producing drugs, substances that cause heedlessness, is one way of wasting one's substance. 2. Haunting the streets at unfitting times is one. 3. Attending fairs is one. 4. Being addicted to gambling is one. 5. Keeping unwholesome company is one. 6. Habitual idleness is one. Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to addiction to strong drink and sloth-producing drugs, substances that cause heedlessness. 1. present waste of money. 2, increased arguments. 3, liability to sickness. 4, loss of good name. 5, indecent exposure of one's person. 6, weakening of the intellect, wisdom. Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to haunting the streets at unfitting times. 1, one is defenseless and without protection. 2, and so are one's wife, life partner, and children. 3, and so is one's property. 4, one is suspected of crimes. 5, false reports are pinned on one. 6, one encounters all sorts of unpleasantness. Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to frequenting fairs. 1 is always thinking, where is their dancing? Where is their singing? Where are they playing music? Where are they reciting? Where is their hand clapping? Where are the drums? Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to gambling. The winner makes enemies. The loser regrets his loss. One wastes one's present wealth. One's word is not trusted in the community. One is despised by one's friends and companions. One is not in demand for marriage because a gambler cannot afford to maintain a wife, life partner. Householder's son. There are these 6 dangers attached to keeping unwholesome company. Any gambler, any glutton, any drunkard, any cheat, any trickster, any bully is his friend, his companion. These are the 6 dangers attached to idleness. Thinking, it's too cold, one does not work. Thinking, it's too hot, one does not work. Thinking, it's too early, one does not work. Thinking, it's too late, one does not work. Thinking, I'm too hungry, one does not work. Thinking, I'm too full, one does not work.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. So here, the Buddha is describing 6 ways of wasting one's substance. What he's talking about here is your vigor or your vitality, your ability to move your life forward. And he's explaining to you 6 ways that you could waste this vigor, this ambition, this motivation, this ability to move your life forward. And if you've seen certain movies, there's a movie that refers to this maybe as mojo, if you've heard that term, right? This vitality, this vigor. So the Buddha is giving you these 6 things. Being addicted to substances that cause heedlessness, this is going to hinder an individual from being able to progress forward in life and have this vigor and vitality to move their life forward. Haunting the streets at unfitting times. This would be like going out late at night, partying it up in the streets, these kinds of things. This can be problematic to your life because you go home really late, you wake up really late. Next thing you know, it's like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. You're waking up in the middle of the day. How could you go out and actually enjoy developing your life and being awake during the time when people are doing wholesome things in the world? You wouldn't be able to move your life forward and create benefit in your life. Then attending fairs is one. What he's referring to here is entertainment. This was the main way that people experienced entertainment during his life. We might think about this as, constantly, searching social media or YouTube videos. If you were spending 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day doing these kinds of things, you're not going to be able to move your life forward because you're wasting your substance. Now, of course, you can do these things in moderation, right? It's not that Facebook or social media or YouTube is all bad, but it's not all good either. You need to look at, the amount of time that you're spending doing a particular thing and do this in moderation. Addicted to being to gambling is another one because you'd be depleting your money and now you wouldn't be able to move your life forward. Keeping unwholesome company is one. This is like having unwholesome friends and companions. This is going to waste your vigor, your vitality, this substance. And then habitual idleness. And this is where you're just kind of complacent and not doing things to go out and work and not attending to the things that you need to attend to with your professional career. So the Buddha goes into detail here with each one of them and explains each one of them in detail, which are very self-explanatory. You can see these kinds of things. The one thing that I might focus on here is this one, about tending fairs, what he's referring to here is craving, desire, attachment. That if you get so used to just enjoying entertainment all the time, you're going to always wonder, where's the next thing? Where's the next thing? You enjoy this particular thing so much that your mind's just craving and longing, yearning, and holding on to it. That's what he's referring to here. So if you're searching, social media a lot, when you're not on social media, you're wondering, what's on there? What's on there? Let me go check that. Let me go check that. What did this person say? What did that person say? Your mind can be obsessed with this, and that's what the Buddha's describing here. But all these others, I think, are very self-explanatory. But if you have questions on them, let me know, and I will help you guys. So if there's any questions on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or here at the temple, just let me know. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. All right, so let's go to the next one, which is chapter 13. Jack, I think that mic might be on. We're getting a little feedback there. Yeah, no worries. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 13? You got it, Pat? Okay, go ahead.
5 chords of sensual pleasure. Monks, there are 5 chords of sensual pleasure. What are the 5? 1. Forms recognizable by the eye that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 2. Sounds recognizable by the ear that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 3. Odors recognizable by the nose that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 4. Flavors recognizable by the tongue that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. 5. Physical objects recognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of craving. These are the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. As to those ascetics and Brahmins who are tied to these 5 chords of sensual pleasure, obsessed with them and completely committed to them, and who use them without seeing the danger in them or understanding the escape from them, it may be understood of them they have met with calamity, met with disaster. The evil one may do with them as he likes. Suppose a forest deer who is bound lay down on a heap of traps. It might be understood of him, he has met with calamity, met with disaster. The hunter can do with him as he likes, and when the hunter comes, he cannot go where he wants. As to those ascetics and Brahmins who are not tied to these 5 chords of sensual pleasure, who are not obsessed with them or completely committed to them, and who use them, seeing the danger in them and understanding the escape from them, it may be understood of them they have not met with calamity, not met with disaster. The evil one cannot do with them as he likes. Suppose a forest deer who was unbound lay down on a heap of traps. It might be understood of him, he has not met with calamity, not met with disaster. The hunter cannot do with him as he likes, and when the hunter comes, he can go where he wants. Suppose a forest deer is wandering in the forest wilds. He walks without fear, stands without fear, sits without fear, lies down without fear. Why is that? Because he is out of the hunter's range. So too, quite distant from sense desires, distant from unwholesome mental states, enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, based in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy. This monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one by depriving Mara's eye of its opportunity. This follows with the 2nd jhana, the 3rd jhana, the 4th jhana. The space is infinite. The consciousness is infinite. The base of nothingness. the base of neither perception nor non-perception. The discourses are identical except for the reference to each attainment. Again, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception or non-perception, a monk enters upon and resides in the elimination of perception and feeling, and his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one by depriving Mara's eye of its opportunity, and to have crossed beyond attachment to the world. He walks without fear, stands without fear, sits without fear, lies down without fear. Why is that? Because he is out of the evil one's range.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the Buddha is talking about the 5 chords of sensual pleasure here. Let's first talk about what sensual desire is. Sensual desire is a pollution of mind. That's part of the fetters. This is where the mind has the longing, yearning through the sense bases. There are 6 individual sense bases. It's the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. And what the mind is doing is it's longing, yearning through these sense bases, wanting permanently agreeable contact. So if you see things that you agree with, you might get happy or excited. But if you see something that you disagree with, you might get angry or sad or frustrated or some other painful feeling. And the same thing is happening with all your other sense bases. If you hear something that you agree with, you get happy or excited. But if you hear something you disagree with, you get painful feelings. So like if you're at a stoplight and there's a car that pulls up next to you and they've got music on that you like, you might start dancing in your seat, being so excited, like, yeah, this is my jam, this is my music. But then when you pull up to the next light and it's music that you don't particularly care for and you don't like it, you'll get angry or frustrated or agitated, and you might think that it's the other person that's causing this. But what's actually causing it is inside your own mind. It's the craving, the desire, the attachment, wanting things to be permanently pleasing. And this is what the mind is doing through all your senses, whether it's the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself. The mind itself is looking to the past and seeing either pleasurable or painful things that have occurred. And now in the present moment, you're experiencing either pleasure or pain within your own mind. Or your mind is looking to the future. And now you're either wanting things to be pleasurable or you're fearful of certain painful things that might occur. This is because the mind has sensual desire. This is the longing, yearning through the sense bases. There's the internal sense base, which is the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. But then there's what's called the external sense base. The external sense base is the physical form that the eye sees. That's the external sense base. The sound is the external sense base that the ear is hearing. The odor is the external sense base that the nose is smelling. The flavor is the external sense base that the tongue is tasting. The physical object is the external sense base that's coming in contact with the body. And then there's mental objects that the mind is experiencing as well. Well, the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, what the Buddha is talking about is the craving, the longing, yearning from the internal sense base to the external sense base. The mind is longing, yearning through these sense bases. And what you're looking to do is you're looking to cut these cords so your mind isn't pulled in that direction. Because when your mind is pulled in the direction of sensual desires, what the Buddha is ultimately sharing with you here is the evil one, which is this being of Mara, this formless being, can do with you what this being would like, because you're tempted into these certain sensual desires. So let's just say, for example, you like the taste of wine or the taste of vodka or rum, and you like that flavor. Well, now your mind is longing, yearning through the tongue for that flavor. And now you really want that so badly, and you might chase after that. And now you experience all kinds of difficulties and struggles because of that. So there's various cravings, desires, attachments that are in the mind, where the mind is chasing after these things, wanting things to be permanently pleasing. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. And if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings. So whenever we're talking about craving, desire, attachment in general, we're talking about the central desire. in these chords of sensual pleasure where the mind is longing, yearning, and wanting things to be permanently pleasing. So as long as you have sensual desire in your mind can't be calm. You can't be peaceful. You can't be joyful, because the mind's always going to want something that it doesn't have. There's going to be some craving that the mind has, and it wants this thing. And because you can't have it permanently, the mind's going to get it in some situations and be happy. And in some situations, you're not going to get what you want coming through these sense bases. So if you cut off this sensual desire and instead you just make wise decisions towards the things that you need in life, you can be happy and peaceful and joyful all the time, because there isn't anything that you want. There's things that you need and things that you work towards, but you're not longing, yearning for those things. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you here. Let me know what questions you guys have here about this particular chapter. There's some other things here that you guys might have questions about, so just let me know. No questions here? You have a question, Jack? Okay. By the way, we have another Jack over here too.
So if I understand correctly, Buddha is teaching monks. And so these are teachings for a monk, but for people who don't aspire to be a monk or whatever, a secular person, or I'm not sure the right wording, but are people supposed to aspire to live as a monk, to not have any pleasures, or have a very plain life, whatever? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. So when the Buddha is talking and teaching, he's addressing the monks because that's who was there frequently, but also household practitioners may have been in the audience as well, but he's typically addressing the monks in his teachings. What he's describing here is eliminating the craving for sensual pleasures. You shouldn't imagine that because you're eliminating this, that you're eliminating pleasure in your life. It's actually just the opposite. By eliminating sensual desire, you're actually going to experience a lot more pleasure, but it's going to be unconditioned pleasure. This pleasure that the Buddha is talking about here, this is conditional pleasure. That if I hear the song that I like and that I want to hear, I'll be happy. But if I don't hear the song that I want to hear, I'm going to be angry and frustrated. This is the sensual desire. But when you get rid of sensual desire, no matter what music you listen to, you can enjoy it, right? So it's not about wiping out your life of everything that would ever experience pleasure about. What it is wiping away the craving for one particular thing or another. That's what you're eliminating. And household practitioners can do this. It's not just ordained practitioners that can do that. So while he's addressing the monks, and that's who he's talking to here, there most likely was household practitioners in the audience as well. But he tended to address the monks because those are the people who were studying the most closely with him. And then also the people who documented the teachings, a lot of them were ordained practitioners. So after his death, they documented the teachings, and they were about 500 enlightened beings who came together after his death to document his teachings, and they were monks. So that's why they're referring to these in ways that he was talking to them. So that's why you see a lot of times he's saying monks. But what he's talking about here is what every single unenlightened mind has, which is sensual desire. And when you get rid of the cravings, desires, attachments, you can experience pleasure and enjoyment and fun in every aspect of life that you experience. So you shouldn't think about this as wiping away and being devoid of pleasure. You're getting rid of conditional pleasure, where you can only have pleasure when these conditions are met. And the more conditions you have, the less and less amount of pleasure that you can have, because their mind can only be happy when these conditions are met. But when you wipe all that away, you can be happy all the time. Make sense? Yep. Okay. All right. So now let's move to the next one. This is chapter 14. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Yeah, Claire.
5 factors of well-spoken speech. Monks, possessing 5 factors, speech is well-spoken, not badly spoken. It is blameless and beyond reproach, disapproval by the wise. What 5? It is spoken at the proper time. What is said is true. It is spoken gently. What is said is beneficial. It is spoken with a mind of loving kindness. Possessing these 5 factors, speech is well spoken, not badly spoken. It is blameless and beyond reproach, disapproval by the wise.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So one of the things you can do here, Jack, is when you see this word monks, is substitute in students. Students, possessing 5 factors, right? That's essentially what he's saying, right? So what he's helping you to see here is the natural law around speech. Because you might think that you're speaking to your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters and your friends in all the best ways, and these conversations blow up on you, and you don't understand why people are getting angry and frustrated and agitated and having all kinds of difficulties in life. You might be looking at yourself and like trying to discern or figure out, like, what did I do here? Well, the Buddha is helping you to be able to see this natural law of the way that you can speak and ensure the best possible outcome. And when you're speaking this way, you'll see that in 99.9% of the time, everything goes wonderful. There's obviously the occasional situation where somebody has an attachment and it just gets triggered. But in 99.9% of the times, if you're speaking this way, your conversations will go excellent. But there's an occasional situation where somebody else is going to get angry, but you didn't cause their anger. So when you practice these 5 factors and you're doing it well, and you see all your relationships are going very well in your life, in that occasional situation, once every 6 months, once a year, when somebody goes off and starts, being upset and angry around you, you'll know that you didn't cause it because you're practicing in such a way that you didn't do anything that would trigger this person's mind, right? And even if you were doing something, you're not the one causing this person to be angry, but that person doesn't necessarily realize that. So when you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you'll see that your relationships will really blossom. You're going to need mental training to be able to do this because you'll find it very difficult in situations with your mom or your dad or your brothers and sisters, your close friends and family members to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. But the more you train your mind, you'll be able to do this. What the Buddha's talking about here when he's saying speaking at the proper time is this is making sure you're not interrupting people. If you're interrupting people, it's not going to promote a healthy relationship and a wholesome conversation. You know that you don't like it when people interrupt you. So if you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind where you're longing and yearning, you might be trying to hurry up and jump in there and say something. And that's the mind having craving. So you'd like to restrain your mind and wait your turn until it's time to talk. The other aspect of speaking the proper time is making sure your mind's ready to speak. Because if you're angry and frustrated and agitated, that's not the proper time to speak. The only thing that's going to come out of your mouth is anger and agitation, and the relationship and the conversation isn't going to go well. And then you also would like to make sure it's the proper time for the other person, because if they're angry and bitter and hostile and harsh, it's not the proper time to talk, and you're not going to be able to produce any kind of beneficial results in the conversation. So you would like to check in each situation that you're getting ready to talk. Is it the proper time? Am I interrupting? Is my mind calm and peaceful? Is the other person calm and peaceful? And if so, then you would like to be sure that you speak the truth. That by you always speaking the truth, you never have to worry about what you said to one person versus what you said to another person, what you said to another person. Your mind can be obsessively trying to figure out what you said to all these different people, and you'd never be able to get to peace and joy if your mind's having to figure all that out. And then if you do lie, people are going to discover those lies, and then when they discover the lies, they're going to find you to be untrustworthy and unloyal, and they're not going to rely on you and see you as someone who's dependable, and you're not going to be able to experience improvement in your personal and professional relationships. So it's important to always speak the truth so your mind can just be at ease and just always speaking the truth. And then speaking gentle is about your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You would like to improve this to the point where all your relationships, no matter who you're talking to, you're always speaking gentle. When you're speaking harsh and bitter and hostile, it's just going to produce unwholesome results for you. When you're talking to your parents or your family or your friends in harsh and hostile and bitter ways, it's all just going to come back to you. So oftentimes what we do is we sit around and we want other people to change. This might be where you thought about sometimes, but you're not going to experience change in your life by just wanting other people to change. You're going to need to do some change. You're going to need to improve the way you function in the world. So by paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, this is going to help you in all your relationships. And now more and more, if somebody else is getting angry, they'll be able to see that. Right? If you're calm and you're gentle and mom and dad are getting angry and frustrated and agitated, they can see that you're not the problem, that it's in their own mind. But as long as they're getting angry and then you're getting angry, they can't see where the problem is. They're going to perceive you to be the problem. And in that situation, you are part of the problem. So you would like to get to the point where you're speaking gentle in all situations. And then more and more, when people are agitated and annoyed and angry and frustrated, they can see that it's their mind that's doing that. It's not you, right? Then you'd like to speak beneficially. What this means is that you're purposeful, that you're clear, that you're concise, and that you're precise in the way that you speak. If you ramble and have chit-chat where you're just rambling on and on and on, you're having frivolous speech or idle chatter, you're just blah, 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 and you're not clear and concise, people aren't going to be able to understand what it is that you're saying. They're going to have to work really hard to understand you, and you're not going to be very influential, and you're not going to be very successful in your professional and your personal relationships. So you like to be clear and direct and concise in the way that you speak. Then you'd like to speak with a mind of loving kindness. This is the opposite of anger and hatred and ill will. If you are speaking with anger, hatred, and ill will, and you're putting that out, that's what's going to come back to you. So what loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Active goodwill towards others. So you would like to infuse all of your conversations with this loving kindness, where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is going to promote the most success for you in your personal and professional relationships. And what we're talking about here with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, if you practice these really well over a consistent long-term period, we're talking months and years, you'll ultimately develop what we refer to in the Thai language as barami. The word barami, it means the one who people listen to. In each village in Thailand, there's kind of some people that the villagers know, like these people are pretty influential in the community. They have a pretty successful life. And when I say successful, I don't mean financially successful. What I mean is they're successful in their relationships. And if you're in a village and you have some people who have barami, these are the ones who people listen to. You have people that you can go to and ask questions and get wisdom. If you're having trouble with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you're having trouble at work with your boss, you're having difficulties with your children, you might go to these people because they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. They speak very wisely and they have deep wisdom to be able to help other people. And this is what ultimately you can develop. If you're interested in being influential and helpful in your community, you would like to be able to establish barami, where you're not causing harm to others through the way that you interact with them. And this will help you to become influential in your community. Now, these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, this is the natural law. This is that natural law of Gotama. The Buddha is explaining to you the way to speak in wholesome ways. And remember, as I shared with you, nothing in the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief, where you're believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're cultivating wisdom now in this life through learning, that's examining and investigating the teachings, which we're doing now, through reflecting. This is where you independently verify the teachings, and I'm going to help you see how to do that. And then you need to practice the teachings, and that's where the real transformation to your mind and to your life is occurring. So now that we've done a bit of learning on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, now start reflecting on them to try to determine if they're true or not. Think about conversations that you've had that haven't gone well, that have ended in unwholesome ways. You can look at these 5 factors and you can see you and or the other person wasn't using all 5 of these factors. You were either speaking at the wrong time, meaning you were interrupting, you were angry, you were frustrated, or the other person was angry or frustrated. Either you weren't telling the truth or the other person wasn't telling the truth. Either you weren't speaking gently or the other person wasn't speaking gently. You weren't speaking beneficially, or you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. And you can see those conversations didn't go very well at all. And that's why, because you weren't using these 5 factors. Even if you miss one of these 5 factors, there's a potential for this conversation to not go well. But on the contrary, on the other side of this, there are conversations that you've had that have gone well. And this is where you can independently reflect on these 5 factors, because you didn't know the 5 factors at that time. But the natural law of karma, it's affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. So in situations where you and the other person were practicing these 5 factors, the conversations went well. Right? But you didn't know the 5 factors at that point. Now you're starting to learn the 5 factors and understand them. So if you start integrating these into your practice and you start practicing these teachings, now you can consciously practice all 5 factors. It's going to be challenging because you need to train your mind and experience more mental discipline and more mental control. You can't just snap your fingers and go outside and today instantly be perfect in practicing these 5 factors. You're going to need some gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. But as you learn these 5 factors and you integrate them into your life more and more, your personal and professional relationships will start to blossom because you're not speaking in ways that will cause harm to other people. So the more you get in touch with what these 5 factors are and you're practicing them, you can independently reflect on them and see that they're true. And then as you're practicing them, you'll be able to see your relationships significantly improve. So if you'd like more details on these, you can ask questions now, of course, but also in volume 1 and even in this volume 2, I've got details here where I explain to you each one of these factors: proper time, true, spoken gently, beneficially, with a mind of loving kindness. I explain it in detail. I even talk about speaking blamelessly, where you're not blaming other people for the things that they're doing. So if you guys have any questions on this or you'd like help with these, you can let me know by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or here at the temple, you can ask questions with the microphones if you like. So any questions on this? There's someone asking a question here on YouTube. You're using a word there that I'm not familiar with. That word, let me see. It looks like it's a different language. BHAGWEAT. I'm not quite sure what that word means. Oh, no, I don't think it's that. I don't think so. If you could explain that or help me, I can help you further. Oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the one back here. Hold on, let me see. I think you might be right, Claire. 1 second. Nope, it's not that word. No, I thought it was maybe this person. But nope, it's not that. Okay, so for whoever's in YouTube there, I see a bunch of people in there. If you guys could expand upon what it is you're asking there, I can help you further. Okay, so I don't see any questions here on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So let's go to the next chapter. This is chapter 15. Is there someone who would like to read this? Sure.
The Tathagata's speech. So too, Prince. 1. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, and which is also unwelcome and disagreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not speak. 2. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true and correct, but unbeneficial, and which is also unwelcome and disagreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not speak. 3. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, and beneficial, but which is unwelcome and disagreeable to others. The Tathagata knows the time to use such speech. 4. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, but which is welcome and agreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not speak. 5. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true and correct, but unbeneficial, and which is welcome and agreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not speak. 6. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, and beneficial, and which is welcome and agreeable to others, the Tathagata knows the time to use such speech. Why is that? Because the Tathagata has compassion for all beings.
Okay, thank you, Claire. So compassion is concern for the misfortune of others. Right? This is what you would like to cultivate in your mind. This will help you eliminate anxiety and worry about the world. Sometimes your mind might be worried or having anxiety or stress about all the harmful things that are happening in the world. You need to move your mind to the middle where you're practicing compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others, but you realize their misfortune is based on their decisions. And you might be able to help them in certain situations, but that's not your responsibility, but you could choose to do that based on your generosity and your compassion. So what the Buddha is saying here is, hey, I have concern for the misfortune of others. He understands that people's minds are unenlightened and they have difficulties in certain things and hearing certain things. And he's going to practice speech in such a way that is with the concern for the misfortune of others, that they're lacking wisdom to be able to understand certain things and certain aspects, and their mind can easily become discontent. Even though he didn't produce that discontentedness, an individual who's speaking in a wise way is going to be observant of other people's minds. And here he's essentially going into a level deeper than the 5 factors of well-spoken speech that we just talked about. This word Tathagata, that means the Buddha. The Buddha referred to himself this way. He very rarely referred to himself as the Buddha. He would refer to himself as the Tathagata. This means the one who shares the truth, or one who discerns the truth, or one who's discovered the truth. Okay? So here, this first one, he's saying that which is untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, that is unwelcomed and disagreeable to others, he doesn't speak that. And the reason why is it doesn't even meet the basic threshold of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, that it's untrue, it's incorrect, and it's unbeneficial. So therefore, he's not even going to say it. Whether it's welcomed and agreeable to others, or here you can say, even if it's welcomed and agreeable, because it's untrue, it's incorrect, it's unbeneficial, he still doesn't speak that, right? Then the second one, he says, if it's true and correct, okay, so it's meeting a certain portion of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, but it's unbeneficial. Okay, it doesn't meet the basic threshold of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, but it's unwelcome and disagreeable. He says, I don't speak that, right? Even if it's welcomed and agreeable, same thing. If it's true and correct, but it's unbeneficial, even if it's welcomed and agreeable to that person, he's not going to say it because it's unbeneficial. Then he says, in a situation where something's true, correct, and beneficial, okay, it meets the basic threshold of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and it's unwelcomed and disagreeable to others, because sometimes you're going to need to say things that is true and correct, and it's beneficial, but it's not welcomed by other people. He says he knows the time to use such speech. Right? You need to know the relationship that you have with this person. You need to know whether it's your role or not to be able to say those things to those people. You need to understand their mind and where they're at with their mind, and whether or not it makes sense for you to use that particular speech. Right? So this is a deeper level of practicing speech that is beyond the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And then the same thing, the Buddha says, if something is true, correct, and beneficial, but it's welcomed and agreeable, he still knows the proper time to say that, because you could potentially arise conceit in somebody's mind, right? It's up to them to maintain their mind and not have conceit. But if you went around complimenting everybody all the time and telling them how handsome or beautiful they are, how friendly and kind they are, and you're just constantly complimenting everybody around you, you're going to find that you're going to have a lot of people with ego around you. And it's not fun to be around people with lots of ego, because there's arrogance and pride. They're going to be feeding off of you, and they're going to want those compliments to confirm their ego and feel that arrogance and boastfulness. So if you have something that's true, correct, and beneficial, and it's welcomed and agreeable, you got to observe when is the proper time to use this speech. Because if you go around complimenting people extensively, you're going to find that you're going to have a lot of people with ego. So the Buddha is showing you a deeper level of understanding here, is that you pay attention to the other person's mind and whether what you're about to say is agreeable or disagreeable to them, because that's going to help you to know when is the proper time to say this. So you don't go out in the world and just blah, 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 blah. If you're going out into the world as a wise individual, as an enlightened being, you would like to be attentive and conscious of what you're going to say. It's almost like when you're training your mind to get to this point, you got to kind of put your words into a quarantine zone before you actually say them. Where when you don't have consciousness and you don't have higher awareness of your mind, you might just blab anything at any time. But what you would like to do is have a thought, think about that thought and look at it. Does it meet the 5 factors of well-spoken speech? And then if it does, you can be confident in saying that particular thing. Some simple things that the Buddha teaches you is to reflect what you're about to say or what you're about to do. Is it going to cause harm to others? Is it going to cause harm to you? Or is it going to cause harm to both? And if so, don't do that thing. Don't say that thing. Because as soon as you put harm out, that harm is going to come back to you. Then he says, while you're doing a certain action, right? Like while you're doing a certain bodily action, or if you have a certain verbal action, you're saying something, or a certain mental action, you can ask yourself, is it going to cause harm to others? Is it going to cause harm to me? Or is it going to cause harm to both? And if so, he says, refrain from doing that thing. Stop doing that thing. Even if you're in the middle of your sentence and you realize, oh, this isn't good, just cut it off and just change the subject and move to something else. No reason to continue that, because that's just going to put more harm in the world. And then he says, after you've done something, you should reflect on it. Whether it's a bodily action, a verbal action, or mental action, reflect on it. Did it cause harm to others? Did it cause harm to me, or did it cause harm to both? And if so, you shouldn't do those things in the future. So this is how you can look inward and you can discover for yourself of what would be wise and unwise. The Buddha is going to guide you in this, but then there's going to be certain times where you're going to need to look inward and figure out what would be wise or unwise. And he's giving you the guidance of how to figure that out, but you're going to need to apply the effort to look at that. It's almost like putting your thoughts into a quarantine zone and looking at them and trying to decide whether or not it would be wise for you to do this particular thing. So initially, you might kind of slow down the decisions you're making around your speech or your actions, because you need to cultivate this wisdom to be able to know what's wise and unwise. Over time, as you cultivate more and more wisdom, it'll be more natural for you to do things in the world using these teachings that the Buddha taught. But as you're building up your practice, you might have to kind of slowly work through that so that you can gradually build the wisdom to know what you're about to do and what you're about to say. Is it wise or not? Okay, so do you guys have any questions on this one? This is chapter 15, the Tathagata speech. Yes, looks like Gary has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Hello? Yeah, okay. So, further to the speech topic, so there's what you say, and then there's how you say it. And so I want to talk about the how you say it part. And so I know that I meet a lot of people, particularly in sort of spiritual circles, let's call it, and they will be they'll be saying the right things, but you can feel that there's like a frustration underneath. So it sort of comes across as a kind of passive-aggressive way. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the first thing I would share with you is that whenever anybody's talking to you, it's important that you don't put extra things into it. Sometimes what the mind does, based on its own pollutions in the unenlightened state, when you're hearing something, you might be assigning meaning to what somebody's saying. And this would be unwise. You would like to clear all that out. What the Buddha says is the seen is the seen, the heard is the heard. In other words, what he's teaching you, and he does this in other places, is not to cling to your perceptions. You might perceive this person as being frustrated, or you might perceive this person as being passive aggressive. But whatever they say, just hear what they say and either respond or don't to what it is that they're saying. Don't add any extra story to it. And also remember that whenever you're interacting with people, that your job isn't to teach them how to speak. However they're choosing to speak, that's on them. And you just choose what is your response going to be. And sometimes your response can be to ignore it. That can be a response too, and just walk away if you need to. So just focus on what it is that people are saying, and don't add anything extra into it. And whatever they say, you just choose how you're going to respond, whether you're going to respond verbally or you're just going to maybe walk away. That's a valid response. Okay, so Helena.
So you said that mental actions, thoughts are actions.
Yes. So the Buddha, when he refers to actions, he talks about bodily actions, verbal actions, and mental actions. When we talk about them in the Eightfold Path, it's right speech, right action. We talk about it that way. But when he talks about, looking at your conduct, he will break it down into bodily, verbal, and mental.
So if there are actions, they have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why the affirmations and the loving kindness meditation work?
Yes, because when we talk about bodily, verbal, and mental actions, you can think about this as right intention, right speech, and right action. That's how that plugs into the Eightfold Path. And you're going to need the right intention of non-ill will and harmlessness. That's the 2 parts of the 3 parts of right intention. Right intention is renunciation, the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. So in order to go out into the world and speak through your verbal actions with a mind of loving kindness, it starts within your mind of right intention. So that's why with the loving kindness meditation, you're cultivating a mind of loving kindness. So now your speech and your actions emanate from a mind of loving kindness. That's the source of how you're interacting in the world, is through your mind.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. So let's maybe perhaps do one more chapter. Let's see which one is here. All right. Yeah, let's do this one. And then we'll end with this one. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Helena? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
4 qualities of a wholesome person. Monks. One who possesses 4 qualities can be understood to be a wholesome person. What for? Here, monks, a wholesome person does not disclose the faults of others, even when asked about them, how much less when not asked. But when he is asked about them, then, led on by questions, he speaks about the faults of others with gaps and omissions, not fully or in detail. It can be understood this individual is a wholesome person. Again, a wholesome person discloses the virtues of others even when not asked about them. How much more than when asked? But when he is asked about them, then, led on by questions, he speaks about the virtues of others without gaps and omissions, fully and in detail. It can be understood this individual is a wholesome person. Again, a wholesome person discloses his own faults, even when not asked about them. How much more than when asked? But when he is asked about them, then, led on by questions, he speaks about his own faults without gaps and omissions, fully and in detail. It can be understood this individual is a wholesome person. Again, a wholesome person does not disclose his own virtues even when asked about them, how much less than when not asked. But when he is asked about them, then, led on by questions, he speaks about his own virtues with gaps and omissions, not fully or in detail. It can be understood this individual is a wholesome person. One who possesses these 4 qualities can be understood as a wholesome person.
Okay. Thank you, Helena. So here, what the Buddha is talking about, and he has another discourse right after this one, which is about unwholesome persons, and he just does the opposite, right? So an individual who is wholesome is not going to be disclosing the faults of others even when asked about them. This is like gossip or slander, right? Like if you're going out there and you're gossiping and slandering about the people around you, sometimes you might feel like by you diminishing other people that it makes you look better. But this actually doesn't make you look good at all because you're gossiping and slandering. Like maybe you're in a work environment and you're talking about or complaining about or gossiping or slandering about someone else, those people that you're gossiping and slandering to about this other person, they're going to get used to you doing that. And when your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you don't like it when people gossip and slander about you, you're going to need to eliminate that from your practice where you're not gossiping and slandering about other people. At the height of gossip and slander, people will come beat you up. You might even get murdered. Right? If you damage somebody's reputation enough, this is what happens. This is the natural laws of existence. Remember, the Buddha is not teaching you the way the world should be, and everybody should follow certain rules and commandments. He's showing you the way the world is. And if you go out into the world and gossip and slander people, it's coming from your own craving where you're trying to diminish someone. It's kind of like you enter into a dark room and you try to put out somebody's candle and you think your candle's going to shine brighter. But in reality, the room just gets darker when you put out someone else's candle. So you would like everybody's candle to be bright and shining because it makes the room nice and bright, right? So the Buddha is teaching you here, and he teaches in other places, that it would be unwise to talk about somebody's faults. There might be some situations where you're in a work environment and your boss maybe is asking you to evaluate a coworker. And in that situation, you need to give some professional feedback, but you would like to preface that with some certain positive qualities. You might say, Susie is really great at da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But, if I was Susie, some things that I would pay attention to in the coming year is I would look to improve this, and I would look to improve this. And you would say it in a positive way, right? You're not looking to be degrading or demeaning. And this is going to be very favorable to you. The person that you're talking to in this situation, like a boss, this would be very favorable that you're talking very professionally in this type of way. So you would like to pay attention to the way that you're speaking about others. And what the Buddha is saying here is that you don't disclose the faults of others when asked about them. That's like a personal relationship. But in a professional relationship, sometimes bosses are looking for feedback to help an employee grow. And if your intention is harmlessness and non-ill will, then you can speak about this person in a positive way to help them grow with a mind of loving kindness. And then the Buddha is saying, but when asked about them and led on by questions, right, because your boss might be asking you, then he speaks about faults of others with gaps and omissions, not in full detail, where it's like, oh, let me tell you about Barbara. Oh man, she does this and that and this and that. Oh, it's so horrible, right? If you start talking like this, it's not going to look favorable for you. So you'd like to be very professional and very, clear on how you're communicating this and doing it in a professional way. Then the Buddha is talking about wholesome person here discloses the virtues of others, even when not asked about them. How much more when asked? But when he asks about them, you're led on by questions, you speak about them fully without gaps and omissions. This doesn't mean you can speak positively about other people, right? That you're looking to lift people up. That's what you would like to do. That's the sign of a real person who's successful in life, is you're looking to lift people up. You're not looking to knock people down, right? That would be the unwholesomeness of the mind that wants to knock people down. But you can be very successful as a friend, as a family member, as a coworker, as a boss, as an employer, when you're lifting people up. There's plenty of people in the world that are going to try to knock people down. But if you go around in the world and you're lifting people up, this is going to be very wonderful for your relationships. And that's what the Buddha is essentially talking about here. Then he's starting to talk about conceit. And he's talking about this in terms of the way that you talk about yourself, right? A wholesome person discloses his own faults even when not asked about them. How much more when asked? So like if your boss or somebody like this asked you about the areas for your improvement, you'd be able to speak about those easily. Because if you have conceit in your mind, you think you're so much better than everyone else and you're putting yourself above people, you'll find it very difficult to talk about your challenges and your difficulties in your life. You'll think that you're so great and everybody else is not. So what the Buddha is teaching you here is to be comfortable to speak about things that you're doing unwisely. And you might be in certain situations where you need to do that. Like when a student is learning with me, sometimes when people are first learning, they talk about all the wonderful things that are going on in their life. Okay, that's fine. I'm interested. I'll help you. But where you really get the most help is when you talk with your teacher about all the struggles and all the difficulties that you're having in your life, because that's where you can cultivate wisdom. And then we help you to cultivate wisdom to overcome those things. If you only tell us all the great, wonderful things that are going on in your life, well, you've already got that part of your life figured out, right? So you can tell us about all the difficulties and struggles that you're having, and that's where we'll help you to cultivate wisdom. wisdom. And then the same thing the Buddha says, a wholesome person does not disclose his own virtues, right? That you don't speak about them, let me tell you about my son, let me tell you about my daughter, let me tell you about everything that's going on in my life and how great I'm doing, right? This would be conceit and arrogance and pride. And if you go around speaking like that to people, they're going to push you aside because that's your ego and your arrogance and your pride coming out. You would like to just stay humble. Let's just say you've got a PhD. Let's just say you're a doctor, a lawyer. Let's just say you're doing some role in society. Maybe you've got your own business. Maybe your children are getting great grades in school. No need to go around and tell everybody about this. It doesn't need to be something that you put out on, a sign in your front yard. You don't need to put it on Facebook and show everybody all the great, wonderful things that you're doing. You can remain humble. And then this way, you'll actually find yourself to be more successful. Because the more you put yourself out there and you try to look so great, people are just going to knock you down. Right? Because they're going to feel jealous because they see you out there doing all these wonderful things. And you're going to be like, what can I do to knock that person down? Whereas if you just stay humble and you just do the things that you know are wise, building up your life, you don't need to go out there and tell everybody about it. And then you won't find that people will be trying to knock you down constantly, because there's plenty of people in the world that are going to try to knock you down. So the more that you go out there and you try to profess how great you're doing, this person's going to get jealous and they're going to try to figure out how to knock you down. So the Buddha is teaching you that it would be wise to be humble and not speak about all the amazing things that you're doing in the world, right? So this can help you in your relationships. So do you guys have any questions on this one? This is chapter 16. Yep, go ahead, Helena.
So I've got a friend who has a PhD, and she put it in her Instagram bio. It's a private Instagram, not professional. And what do you think about it? Because I thought, wow, that's really cool. And it really, it means that she's disciplined, that she's smart. And I think I would probably do this. Maybe I would do the same thing if I had a PhD.
Yeah, it's not about looking at what someone else is doing and judging them. It's because each situation is different. It doesn't mean that if you put a PhD on your social media that all of a sudden you have ego and conceit, because in some situations, depending on your profession, it might make sense to do those kinds of things. Like they have LinkedIn and stuff like this, that it's wise to put your credentials on there. But there's ways to do this humbly and not to be boastful and arrogant about it. So putting something on there as a way to help you professionally, that can be very helpful. But you need to just take stock of your own mind and figure out why are you doing this? Is it just because you want to be projecting a certain image to the world and you're trying to look for accolades and admiration? Or is it truly because it's going to help you professionally, because you have professional people looking at your social media and having it on there is going to be helpful for you?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I see a question from Rachel here in Chiang Mai on Facebook. You're asking if you can come to the temple and purchase a book. Yes, we have our books here. Essentially, the books are available at no cost. What we do is we just have you reimburse us for the printing cost. So if you'd like to come here, I'm going to be here until probably 11:15 or so today, which is another 30 minutes. So you're welcome to come here. And then I'll be here tomorrow too, starting around 8:30 or so. You're welcome to come tomorrow as well. And then we're usually here Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday each week. Okay, so this is everything that I was going to share with you guys today. We do have 10 chapters that we study each week, but on Saturday morning, we tend to not be able to study all 10 because we do meditation together here. But in the evening at 9 p.m., I do this from home and I do it online. I live stream it through Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom. And there I do all 10 chapters. So if you're interested in learning all 10 chapters, you can learn in the book, or you can also attend the classes in the evening. No matter where you are in the world, there's classes for you. This particular class, it's more of a study group, and students oftentimes have built a foundation and then they move into this program. But I have other programs that are more foundational. So this isn't the standard way that I typically teach. I teach in more of a traditional method where I'm teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I open up to questions and I'm teaching some more. And I do that in all the foundational programs. So that's all the other programs that we have. You can see them on our bulletin board over there. You can see them on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. We have various classes, courses, and retreats that are available to you at no cost. You can get our books and videos and podcasts, audiobooks, You can even get personal guidance where you can sit down with me either here in Chiang Mai or even online or whatever city I might be traveling to. You can just reach out to me by message and we can schedule a personal guidance session, because it's one thing learning in class, but it's another thing relating it to your personal challenges. If you'd like to meet online through Zoom, you can just go to our website and there's an application there where you can schedule it. But if you'd like to meet in person, just send me a message and then we can schedule some time to be able to sit down and talk. So thank you all guys for joining. If you'd like to join tomorrow, we have the group learning program at 9 a.m. And then on Wednesday, we also have meditation, and I'll be opening up to any and all questions that you guys have at that time. For those of you guys that are here in Chiang Mai and that you're maybe going to be around for the next few weeks, if you would like to stick around after class, I'm going to show you guys how to set things up for when I'm gone, because some of you guys know I'm going to be traveling for the next 3 weeks and I'm still going to be able to teach here. But if you'd like to participate in kind of coming into the classroom and setting things up so that I can come in and still teach you guys by Zoom, you guys can stick around. I'll teach you guys that. It'll take me about maybe 5 or 10 minutes to show you those things. So perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.